Your daughter-in-law switched your ticket to a one-way, the flight attendant whispered urgently. I'm Arthur Caldwell, and at 71 I thought I knew my family. That moment changed everything. Because while they saw a confused old man to discard in Arizona, they had no idea they were betraying the secret owner of the $18 million company where my son has worked as an employee for 23 years. What happened next in that courthouse would rewrite our family tree forever. The truth about who really controlled their world was about to destroy everything they believed. I thanked her quietly and settled back into my seat, finally understanding why my son and daughter-in-law had been so insistent about this family trip. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. But to understand how a simple factory worker's secret brought down his own family, we need to go back to where this betrayal really began. It started 3 weeks earlier at Daniel's promotion celebration. My son, 38 years old, operations supervisor at Caldwell Industries, was holding court in our living room. Victoria, his wife of 12 years, had organized everything perfectly. Too perfectly. Dad seems confused lately, Victoria announced to the gathered relatives. Her voice carried that concerned tone she'd been practicing. Yesterday he asked me 3 times what day it was. I was sitting right there, holding my coffee, listening to her lie. My nephew Jake looked uncomfortable. Uncle Arthur seems fine to me. That's the problem with dementia, Victoria continued. It comes and goes. Early stages are tricky to spot. She pulled out a manila folder. Desktop Springs Memory Care, Desert Winds Assisted Living, Sunset Manor Senior Community, all in Arizona, all conveniently near her sister. These places specialize in cognitive decline, she explained. They're equipped for Dad's needs. Daniel nodded along. Mom always worried about Dad aging alone. Maybe it's time. Time. As if my life had an expiration date they got to set. The Phoenix facilities are excellent, Victoria added, and significantly more affordable than Ohio options. More affordable. There it was. The real motivation. I'd been watching this performance for months. Small things at first. Victoria speaking louder around me as if I was hard of hearing. Daniel explaining simple concepts I'd understood before he was born. Both of them exchanging those looks, the kind that said, "Poor old Dad doesn't get it anymore." Last month, Victoria had helped organize my bills, commented on my fixed income, made sympathetic noises about my $89,000 in savings being all I had left. If only she knew. The memory care brochures listed monthly costs. $8,900 at Desert Winds, $7,200 at Sunset Manor. Victoria had done her homework, found places that would drain my visible assets within 10 months. Dad's becoming a safety concern, Daniel said. Last week he left the stove on. Another lie. I cook every Tuesday. Same routine for 3 years since Martha died. Never left anything on. We're just worried about you, Dad, Daniel continued, living alone in this big house. This house I'd paid off in 1993. This house where I'd raised him. Where his mother had died in my arms while he was too busy with work to visit. Victoria leaned forward. Arthur, honey, we've found a lovely place in Phoenix. Clean air, sunshine, activities with people your age. People my age, as if I was already gone. The move would be temporary, she assured everyone. Just until we figure out the best long-term solution. Temporary. One-way tickets are never temporary. I watched my family nod along. Watched them convince themselves this was kindness. Watched them plan my exile while eating my food in my house. What about his job? Jake asked. Doesn't Uncle Arthur still work part-time at the plant? Daniel laughed. Dad hasn't worked in 5 years. Sometimes he forgets he's retired. I'd worked at Caldwell Industries for 35 years. Started on the factory floor in 1987. Daniel knew that. What he didn't know was why I'd never been laid off during the downsizing years. Why my pension was so generous. Why the plant manager always treated me with unusual respect. Victoria gathered the brochures. We'll start with a short visit. See how Dad adjusts. A short visit. With a one-way ticket. I think that's wise, said my sister-in-law Carol. Sometimes they resist change initially. They, as if I'd become something other than human. I finished my coffee and stood up. Interesting presentation, Victoria. She beamed. I'm so glad you're open to exploring options, Dad. Oh, I'm very open to exploring options, I said quietly. Daniel looked relieved. Great. We'll book the flights tomorrow. Book the flights. One way, as it turned out. I excused myself and went to my garage. Opened the filing cabinet I'd been maintaining for 37 years. Found the manila folder labeled Insurance Policies, 1987. Some options, I realized, had been waiting a very long time to be explored. That night, I sat in Martha's chair and thought about what I was about to lose. On the surface, it looked simple enough. My $89,000 in savings, what Victoria called my nest egg, would cover about 10 months in Arizona memory care. After that, I'd qualify for state assistance. Medicaid would take the house. Daniel would inherit my life insurance policy and whatever scraps remained. They had it all figured out. But they'd made one critical miscalculation. They thought the $89,000 was everything. I pulled out my real bank statements, the ones Victoria had never seen. First National Business Account, holder, A. Caldwell, President Caldwell Industries, Inc. Current balance, $2.3 million in operating funds. Annual distributions to majority stockholder, $840,000. My pension wasn't a pension. It was my own company paying me dividends. If I stayed silent, if I let them ship me to Arizona, I'd lose more than my freedom. I'd lose my legacy. The company I'd built from a $25,000 loan and 60-hour weeks would fall into their hands by default. Daniel would finally learn he'd been working for the family business all along, but only after I was safely disappeared. The irony was perfect. My son spent 23 years climbing a ladder I'd built for him, never once wondering why his promotions came so easily, why his salary jumped from $45,000 to $195,000 over 2 decades, why his supervisor position at just another manufacturing company came with profit-sharing bonuses that paid for Victoria's Mercedes lease. $4.8 million in total compensation over 23 years. Every dollar from the company he thought employed him. But there was more at stake than money. I thought about Martha. 3 years ago, she'd been dying in that hospital bed when Victoria first started her campaign. Arthur looked so tired, Victoria had whispered to the nurses. The stress of caregiving. We're worried about his mental state. Even then, she was laying groundwork, planting seeds about my competency while my wife fought for her last breaths. Martha had seen it coming. That woman wants you gone, she'd said during our final conversation. Promise me you won't let her win. I'd promised, but I'd also been grieving, distracted. I'd let Victoria's manipulation accelerate unchallenged. Now she was 3 years into a careful plan. Memory care brochures had appeared gradually in my mail, accidentally delivered to my address. Victoria would find them, express concern, suggest maybe someone was looking out for Dad's future. She'd started speaking louder around me in public. Not quite yelling, but loud enough for others to notice, loud enough to plant the idea that I was failing. She'd begun asking me to repeat things I'd said clearly the first time. Sorry, Dad. Could you say that again? With that patient smile. That poor old man tone. Death by 1,000 cuts. Each small humiliation designed to build a case for incompetency. If I disappeared to Arizona, the narrative would be complete. Poor Arthur finally accepted he needed help. Daniel would take over my affairs gradually, legally, power of attorney for an absent father. Eventually he'd discover the company ownership. But by then, I'd be legally declared incompetent to manage my own assets. They'd inherit everything while keeping their hands clean. The stakes weren't just financial. They were about 37 years of work being stolen by the people I'd worked to protect. I'd started Caldwell Industries in 1987 with $25,000 borrowed against this house. Martha and I ate ramen noodles for 2 years while I poured every dollar back into equipment and payroll. Daniel was 15 then. He watched me leave at 5 a.m. and return after midnight, building something that would eventually employ 180 people, something that would give him a future. When he graduated college in 2001, I hired him as a production assistant. $28,000 starting salary, fair wage for entry-level work. I wanted him to earn his place, learn the business from the ground up. I'd planned to tell him the truth when he turned 40. Have that conversation about legacy, responsibility, family business traditions. I'd imagined him being grateful, proud, ready to eventually take over. Instead, He'd spent 23 years complaining about his boss's decisions, griping about company policies I'd written, criticizing the very business practices that had paid for his house, his car, his wife's shopping habits. And now he was trying to steal it all. If I let them win, Martha's sacrifice would mean nothing. My 37 years of building would become their 37 minutes of paperwork. But I had something they didn't expect. I had the truth, and I had proof. The question was, did I have the courage to use it? The confrontation came 3 days later. Daniel arrived unannounced with Victoria and a man I didn't recognize. "Dad, this is Dr. Stephen Walsh," Victoria announced. "He specializes in geriatric psychology." Dr. Walsh smiled with practiced sympathy. "Mr. Caldwell, your family asked me to do a preliminary assessment, an ambush, in my own living room." "Assessment for what?" I asked. "Just routine cognitive screening," Victoria said quickly. Nothing formal, yet." Daniel sat across from me. "Dad, we're concerned about some of the things you've been saying lately." "Such as?" "Yesterday you mentioned working at the plant. But Dad, you retired 5 years ago." I had mentioned working at the plant, because I'd been there Tuesday morning for a board meeting. But in their version of reality, that was proof of confusion. "You also asked Victoria 3 times what day it was," Daniel continued. "I asked her once what day she planned to book the flights. She gave me 3 different answers." Victoria's smile tightened. "Arthur, you asked me Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday morning. I asked you once. You said Friday, then Monday, then we'll see." Dr. Walsh scribbled notes. "Mr. Caldwell, can you tell me what year it is? 2024? And who's the current president?" I stared at him. "Joe Biden. Though I'm curious why my mental competency is being questioned in my own home without my consent." "Dad," Daniel said gently, "we're just trying to help." "Help with what?" Victoria leaned forward. "Arthur, honey, you've been struggling. Small things. Forgetting conversations. Repeating questions. Give me one specific example. Last week you asked me 3 times if I'd picked up your prescription. I asked you once if you'd picked up my prescription. You said yes. When I checked, the pharmacy said no one had been by, so I asked again." "See?" Victoria looked at Dr. Walsh. "He's confused about the timeline." The timeline. They were rewriting history in real time. Dr. Walsh cleared his throat. "Mr. Caldwell, your family tells me you've been talking about work, but you've been retired for several years." "I was at Caldwell Industries Tuesday morning." Daniel sighed. "Dad, you drove by the plant. That's not the same as working." "I was in the building." "Security probably let you look around. They're nice that way." Security. As if I needed permission to enter my own company. "Who signs my paychecks?" I asked quietly. Daniel blinked. "Dad, you don't get paychecks. You get Social Security and your pension. Who signs my paychecks?" "Arthur," Victoria said carefully. "You're confused. You don't work anymore." I looked at Dr. Walsh. "Doctor, if someone receives regular payments from a company, what would you call that?" "Well, employment compensation or possibly consulting fees." "Dad gets pension payments," Daniel interrupted, "from his old job." "How much is this pension?" Victoria and Daniel exchanged glances. "That's private family financial information." "It's my pension. How much?" "Around $3,200 a month," Victoria said. $3,200. My actual monthly distributions were $70,000. And this covers my living expenses? "Mostly," Daniel said, "though we've been helping with some costs." Helping. They'd never paid for a single expense. Dr. Walsh made more notes. "Mr. Caldwell, do you feel you're able to manage your financial affairs independently?" "Doctor, let me ask you something. If a man owned a company worth $18 million, but his family thought he was a retired factory worker living on $3,200 a month, would you consider that man competent or incompetent?" Silence. "That's an interesting hypothetical," Dr. Walsh said carefully. "Is it hypothetical?" Victoria laughed nervously. "Arthur, you're confused again. You worked at Caldwell Industries, but you didn't own it. Didn't I?" "Dad," Daniel said firmly, "you were a production worker, a good one, but you didn't own the company." "How do you know?" "Because I work there now. I'd know if my father owned the place." "Would you?" Another long silence. Dr. Walsh closed his notebook. "Perhaps we should schedule a more formal evaluation." "Excellent idea," I said. "I'd like my attorney present." Victoria's smile faltered. Your attorney? Helen Mitchell. She's represented me for 37 years. Dad, Daniel said slowly, why do you have an attorney? Same reason I have a company. Some things require professional management. Dr. Walsh stood up. I think we should pause here. Doctor, Victoria said quickly, these delusions about owning companies, are they delusions? I asked. Or are they inconvenient truths? Daniel stood up too. Dad, this is exactly what we're worried about, these fantasies about being some kind of business owner. Daniel, let me ask you something. In your 23 years at Caldwell Industries, have you ever wondered why your promotions came so easily? I earned my promotions. Did you? Or were they given to you? What's that supposed to mean? It means your father might know more about your career than you think. Victoria grabbed Dr. Walsh's arm. Doctor, you can see the issue. These grandiose delusions. Are they delusions? I repeated. Or are they the foundation of everything you've been taking for granted? I walked to the window, looked out at my driveway, at Daniel's company car, the one with Caldwell Industries printed on the side. Who do you think signs the purchase orders for those vehicles, Daniel? For the first time, my son looked uncertain. The next morning, I had errands to run. Daniel and Victoria thought these were signs of confusion, random trips that didn't make sense. They were wrong. First stop, Mitchell and Associates, downtown Dayton. Helen Mitchell had been my attorney since 1987. Corporate law, estate planning, business acquisitions. She'd drafted every major document in my company's history. Arthur, she said as I entered her office, I got your call. You're sure about this timeline? They're moving faster than expected. Flights booked for March 15th. Helen opened a thick file cabinet. 37 years of documentation. Every incorporation paper, every stock certificate, every board resolution. She pulled out a manila folder marked Caldwell Arthur. Corporate ownership documentation, 1,987 to 2,024 inches. This contains your original incorporation documents from March 3rd, 1987. $25,000 initial investment. You founded the company as sole proprietor, then converted to corporate structure in September 1987 when you took on Raymond Cooper as minority partner. What's my current ownership percentage? 73%. Raymond owns 27%. You've been majority shareholder for 37 years. And Daniel's legal status? Employee. Hired June 15, 2001. No ownership stake, no stock options. He's been drawing a salary and benefits as operations supervisor since 2018. Helen pulled out another folder. His complete employment record. Starting salary $28,000. Current salary $195,000. Total compensation over 23 years. $4.8 million including benefits, bonuses, company car, health insurance. $4.8 million. More than most people see in a lifetime. He's never questioned the generous compensation package. Why would he? He thinks he's working for someone else's company. He doesn't know he's being supported by family wealth. Helen showed me Daniel's employee file. Performance reviews, promotion letters, salary adjustment memos, all signed by me as company president, all treating him as a regular employee, not my son. The beautiful irony, Helen continued, is that he's been complaining about management decisions for years. Your decisions. He's been criticizing the boss without knowing the boss is his father. I thought about Daniel's dinner table rants. The old man running that place doesn't know modern business. Management is stuck in the past. If I were in charge, things would be different. He'd been complaining about me, to me. Helen, what happens if they succeed in having me declared incompetent? Daniel would likely petition for power of attorney. If granted he'd gain control of your assets, including the company, the irony would be complete. He'd inherit everything while believing he was rescuing it from neglect. And Victoria? As his wife, she'd influence those decisions. Your company would essentially fall under her control. I signed several documents Helen had prepared. This gives you emergency power of attorney? Only if you're declared incompetent against your will. It's a firewall against family manipulation. Next stop, the Caldwell Industries office building. Red brick, built in 1995 when the company expanded. I used my keycard to enter through the executive entrance. Raymond Cooper was waiting in the conference room. My business partner for 37 years, minority shareholder, and one of the few people who knew the full story. Arthur, you look well for a man supposedly suffering from dementia. Victoria's been thorough with her documentation. Raymond chuckled. Daniel stopped by my office yesterday. Wanted to discuss management's declining performance. Apparently the company president is making questionable decisions. Did he now? He's concerned about profitability. Thinks we need fresh leadership. He actually suggested I consider replacing current management with someone younger and more dynamic. My son was advocating for my removal from my own company. He doesn't know you're his father's business partner? He knows Raymond Cooper, minority shareholder. He doesn't know I'm also Arthur Caldwell's closest advisor. Fascinating conversation, really. He spent 20 minutes explaining why his boss should be fired. Raymond opened his briefcase. These are our quarterly reports. Company value has increased 340% since Daniel started working here. Annual profit last year, $3.2 million. Your dividend distribution, $840,000. And he thinks I'm living on a $3,200 pension. The beauty of your strategy, Arthur. You wanted to see who your son really was when he thought you had nothing. Well, now you know. I walked to the window overlooking the production floor. 180 employees, good jobs, fair wages, health benefits, built from nothing with borrowed money and 60-hour weeks. Raymond, do you remember why I kept the ownership secret? Martha was worried about Daniel's work ethic. You both wanted him to succeed on merit, not nepotism. And now? Now he's trying to steal what he never knew belonged to him. I had one more stop. My garage at home, where I kept the real filing system, 15 bankers' boxes of documents spanning 37 years, financial records, tax returns, board meeting minutes, stock certificates, evidence. I pulled out box #1, 1987, Company Foundation. Inside, the original bank loan application, $25,000 against home equity, loan approval letter, initial incorporation documents, all signed by Arthur Caldwell, age 34, with big dreams and bigger determination. Box #15, 2024, current operations. Daniel's latest performance review, salary adjustment memo raising his pay to $195,000. Company car assignment paperwork, health insurance enrollment forms. 37 years of proof that the confused old man they were planning to abandon was actually the boss who'd been paying their bills all along. I loaded 3 boxes into my truck. If they wanted a competency hearing, they'd get one. But they might not like what competency actually looked like. The public humiliation came exactly where Victoria planned it. Daniel's workplace. She'd orchestrated what she called an intervention in the Caldwell Industries lobby. Gathered witnesses, Dr. Walsh, a social worker named Janet Stevens, and several of Daniel's co-workers, all there to see the confused old man finally accept he needed help. I arrived at 2 p.m. as requested. The lobby was busy with shift change, employees coming and going, perfect audience for Victoria's performance. "Arthur," she said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "thank you for meeting us here." Daniel looked nervous. He worked here. These were his colleagues. Having his mentally declining father create a scene wasn't ideal for his professional reputation. "Dad," he said quietly, "maybe we should talk privately." "Oh no," Victoria said firmly. "Privacy is part of the problem. Arthur needs transparency, accountability." Dr. Walsh stepped forward. "Mr. Caldwell, we've scheduled a formal competency evaluation for tomorrow. Your family feels it's necessary." "Necessary for what?" "For your own protection," Janet Stevens added, "and for the protection of others who might be affected by your declining judgment. Others, like the family members counting on their inheritance." Victoria opened her folder. "Arthur, we've documented numerous incidents of confusion, memory loss, and poor decision-making." She began reading from her list, loud enough for the gathering crowd of employees to hear every word. March 1st, asked the same question 3 times about flight arrangements. March 3rd, claimed to have worked at this building when he's been retired for 5 years. March 5th, insisted he receives paychecks from Caldwell Industries. Several employees exchanged glances. Daniel's father was claiming to work here? March 7th, made statements about owning the company where his son is employed. Clear evidence of grandiose delusions. More murmurs from the crowd. This was getting juicy. The operations supervisor's father thought he owned the place. Daniel's face was red. "Dad, please, you're embarrassing yourself." "Am I?" "Yes, you don't work here. You don't own anything here. These people know me. They know my position. You're making me look bad. Your position. Tell them about your position, Daniel. I'm operations supervisor. I manage production schedules, coordinate with suppliers, oversee quality control. And who hired you for that position? Management hired me. I earned it through performance and dedication. Which management specifically? Daniel hesitated. The company president. What's his name? Another pause. I don't see how that's relevant. Interesting. After 23 years, my son didn't know his boss's name. Victoria jumped in. Arthur, you're confused again. Daniel works for Caldwell Industries. You used to work here too, but that was years ago. What's the company president's name? I asked the crowd. Silence. These employees were looking at each other, realizing something odd was happening. Finally, a man in coveralls spoke up. Arthur Caldwell. Same as yours, I guess. Coincidence, right? Not exactly. How long has Arthur Caldwell been president? I asked. Since the beginning, the man replied. Company was founded in '87. Mr. Caldwell started it in a garage, built it up to what it is today. Daniel was staring. That's just a coincidence. Same last name. Is it? I reached into my briefcase, pulled out my company ID badge. Photo ID with my picture, name, and title. President, Caldwell Industries, Inc. The lobby went very quiet. Victoria grabbed the badge. This is fake. Arthur. Where did you get this? Same place I got this. I showed them my business card. Same title, same company, my contact information. And this, company credit card with my name embossed on it. And this, key card for executive parking and building access. Dr. Walsh was studying the documents. These appear authentic. Of course they're authentic, said a voice from behind us. Everyone turned. Helen Mitchell had arrived, carrying her briefcase and wearing the expression of a lawyer who'd been practicing for 40 years. Mr. Arthur Caldwell has been president and majority shareholder of Caldwell Industries since its incorporation on March 3, 1987. Victoria laughed nervously. That's impossible. Arthur was a factory worker. Arthur Caldwell founded this company with a $25,000 loan against his home. He currently owns 73% of all outstanding shares. Daniel was shaking his head. No, that's not. I work here. I've been here 23 years. I'd know if my father owned the company. Would you? Helen asked. When was the last time you looked at an organizational chart or read the company's corporate filing documents? Why would I need to? Because you've been working for your father's company your entire adult career. The crowd was growing. More employees had stopped to listen. This was better than TV. Janet Stevens cleared her throat. This seems like a family matter that should be handled privately. Oh no, I said calmly. Victoria insisted on transparency. Let's be transparent. I looked at Daniel. Son, what's your current salary? Dad, that's personal. $195,000 annually, Helen announced, plus company car, health benefits, profit-sharing bonuses, and 401k matching. Total compensation package worth approximately $240,000 per year. Someone in the crowd whistled. That was serious money for Dayton, Ohio. Over 23 years, Helen continued, Daniel Caldwell has received $4.8 million in total compensation from his father's company. Victoria was backing toward the door. This is some kind of scam. Is it? I asked. Daniel, who approves your salary increases? The president. What's the president's name? Long pause. Arthur Caldwell. And who am I? Even longer pause. Arthur Caldwell. The lobby was dead silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights. Dr. Walsh closed his notebook. I think we need to postpone the competency evaluation. No, I said firmly. Let's proceed as scheduled. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. at the courthouse. Victoria found her voice. Arthur, you're not thinking clearly. Dr. Walsh, I said. Tomorrow you'll determine if I'm competent to manage my own affairs. I look forward to your professional assessment. I turned to the crowd of employees. Thank you all for witnessing this conversation. I suspect it will be important later. As I walked toward the exit, I heard Daniel call out, Dad, wait! I stopped and turned around. Is this real? Tomorrow, I said quietly, you'll find out exactly how real it is. Courthouse room 5B was packed the next morning. What started as a family competency hearing had somehow become public theater. Word had spread through Dayton's manufacturing community. Arthur Caldwell's family was trying to have him declared incompetent, while he claimed to own the company where his son worked. Victoria had brought reinforcements: Dr. Walsh, Janet Stevens, 3 character witnesses who'd testify about my declining mental state, and a lawyer named Paul Richardson who specialized in elder law. I brought Helen Mitchell and 1 banker's box. Judge Margaret Foster presided. 63 years old, no patience for games, known for cutting through legal nonsense to find truth. This is a preliminary hearing to determine if Arthur Caldwell requires a guardian due to mental incompetency, she announced. Mr. Richardson, present your case. Victoria's lawyer stood up. Your Honor, we'll demonstrate that Mr. Caldwell suffers from dementia-related delusions that impair his judgment. Specifically, he believes he owns Caldwell Industries, a major manufacturing company where his son is employed. And the family's position is that this belief is false. Completely false, Your Honor. Mr. Caldwell was a factory worker who retired 5 years ago. He's living on Social Security and a modest pension. These grandiose delusions about business ownership represent serious cognitive decline. Judge Foster looked at me. Mr. Caldwell, how do you respond? Your Honor, I request permission to present documentary evidence of my actual financial and legal status. Permission granted. Helen Mitchell opened the banker's box. Your Honor, these are the original incorporation documents for Caldwell Industries, filed with the state of Ohio on March 3, 1987. She handed copies to the judge, Richardson, and the court clerk. Arthur Caldwell appears as the founding president and majority stockholder. Initial capitalization, $25,000 borrowed against his primary residence. Judge Foster studied the documents. These appear to be certified state filings. They are, Your Honor. Mr. Caldwell founded the company 37 years ago. Richardson objected. Your Honor, anyone can file incorporation papers. That doesn't prove current ownership or control. Fair point, Judge Foster said. Miss Mitchell, do you have evidence of current status? Helen smiled. Extensive evidence, Your Honor. She pulled out a thick folder. These are quarterly financial reports for Caldwell Industries, 2021 through 2024. Each report lists Arthur Caldwell as president and 73% majority shareholder. Objection, Richardson said. These could be fabricated. They're certified by our accounting firm, verified by our bank, and filed with state tax authorities. Your Honor, I have the firm's managing partner available by phone to authenticate these documents. Judge Foster was flipping through pages. Mr. Richardson, these look legitimate. Do you have contrary evidence? Your Honor, the family has never seen these documents. Mr. Caldwell has been living as a retiree on fixed income. Miss Mitchell, can you explain this discrepancy? Certainly, Your Honor. Mr. Caldwell chose to maintain a modest public lifestyle while building his business. His family was unaware of the company's growth or his ownership status. I watched Daniel's face. He was reading over Richardson's shoulder, seeing the financial reports for the first time. Company revenue, $12.8 million annually. Net profit, $3.2 million. His expression was shifting from confusion to shock. Victoria whispered urgently to Richardson, who stood up. Your Honor, if Mr. Caldwell truly owns this company, why has his son been employed there without knowing his father was the owner? Judge Foster looked at me. That is an interesting question, Mr. Caldwell. Your Honor, I hired my son as an entry-level employee in 2001. I wanted him to learn the business, prove his worth, and earn advancement through merit rather than nepotism. And he was unaware of your ownership? Completely unaware. I used my role as company president to guide his career development while maintaining the parent-child relationship separately. Helen pulled out another folder. Your Honor, these are Daniel Caldwell's employment records. 23 years of service, promoted 6 times. Current salary $195,000 annually. Daniel stood up suddenly. Your Honor, I had no idea. I've been working there since college. I thought I was just an employee. Mr.
Daniel Caldwell, Judge Foster said, you're saying you never suspected your father owned the company? Never. He lived like a retiree, drove an old truck, wore work clothes, never mentioned owning anything. Victoria was frantically writing notes and passing them to Richardson. Your Honor, Richardson said, even if these documents are authentic, the family's concern remains valid. Mr. Caldwell's decision to hide his wealth and business ownership suggests impaired judgment. Or, I said quietly, it suggests excellent judgment about my family's character. The courtroom went silent. Judge Foster leaned forward. Explain that statement, Mr. Caldwell. Your Honor, 3 years ago my wife died. Within months, my daughter-in-law began suggesting I needed assisted living care. She researched facilities in Arizona, near her sister. She and my son booked me a one-way ticket under the pretense of a family vacation. I gestured toward Victoria. Yesterday she organized a public intervention to humiliate me into accepting incompetency proceedings. Her goal was to gain control of what she believed were my limited assets. And your conclusion? My conclusion, Your Honor, is that hiding my wealth was the smartest decision I ever made. It revealed who my family really is when they think I have nothing to offer them. Helen handed me a document. Your Honor, this is a recording transcript of a conversation between Victoria and Daniel Caldwell, recorded last week with Mr. Caldwell's knowledge and consent. She read aloud, Victoria, the old fool will never know what hit him. Once we get power of attorney, we'll liquidate everything and put him somewhere cheap. Daniel, Dad always said the family comes first. Guess he was right. Our family comes first. The courtroom buzzed with whispers. Victoria had gone pale. Judge Foster studied the transcript. Miss Victoria Caldwell, did you make these statements? Victoria stood slowly. Your Honor, we were just trying to protect Arthur's interests. By liquidating his assets and placing him in cheap care? He seemed confused about money. We thought... You thought wrong, I said. Your Honor, I request this hearing be concluded. I believe I've demonstrated both mental competency and sound judgment in protecting my assets from family exploitation. Dr. Walsh raised his hand. Your Honor, I'd like to withdraw my preliminary assessment. Mr. Caldwell clearly demonstrates full cognitive capacity and sophisticated long-term planning ability. Judge Foster nodded. Based on the evidence presented, I find no grounds for competency concerns. Mr. Arthur Caldwell retains full control of his personal and business affairs. She looked sternly at Victoria and Daniel. However, I'm ordering a formal investigation into potential elder abuse and fraud. The statements recorded and played here suggest deliberate manipulation and financial exploitation. Richardson was packing his briefcase. Your Honor, the family withdraws all petitions related to guardianship. Too late for that, Counselor. This hearing has revealed evidence of potential crimes. As the judge gavelled the session closed, Daniel approached me. Dad, I don't understand. Why didn't you tell me? Son, I said quietly, I wanted to see who you were when you thought I couldn't help you anymore. And now I know. The courtroom was emptying, but the whispers would last for months. Arthur Caldwell, the quiet factory worker everyone thought they knew, had just revealed himself as the secret millionaire who'd been watching his family plan his betrayal. Victoria was crying. Daniel was staring at the financial reports, and I was finally free to be exactly who I'd always been. The drive back to Caldwell Industries took 12 minutes. Longest 12 minutes of Daniel's life, I imagine. He rode with me in my truck, the same old man's vehicle Victoria had mocked for years, a 2019 Ford F-150 that I'd bought with cash and maintained perfectly. Nothing wrong with it except Victoria's opinion. Dad, Daniel said as we pulled into the executive parking space, I need to understand what's happening. What's happening is that your employment is terminated, effective immediately. He stared at me. You're firing me? I'm firing the employee who spent 23 years criticizing his boss to his boss's face, the employee who helped his wife plan to steal everything that boss had built. We walked through the main entrance. Employees who'd witnessed yesterday's lobby confrontation watched us pass. Word travels fast in a building with 180 workers. Helen Mitchell was waiting in the conference room with Raymond Cooper and 2 other men I didn't recognize. Arthur, Helen said, these gentlemen are from the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit, Agents David Park and Michael Torres. Daniel's face went white. FBI? Agent Park spoke first. Mr. Daniel Caldwell, we're investigating potential wire fraud, conspiracy to commit theft, and elder abuse in connection with your family's actions regarding your father's assets. Mr. Caldwell, Agent Torres added, the recorded conversations and documented evidence from this morning's hearing suggest a coordinated effort to defraud your father of significant assets. I sat down at the head of the conference table, the same table where I'd held board meetings for 15 years.
the same table where Daniel had once sat as a 22-year-old asking for advice about his first promotion. "Daniel, sit down." He sat. "Helen, present Mr. Daniel Caldwell with his termination paperwork." Helen slid a manila folder across the table. "Daniel Caldwell, Operations Supervisor, Employee ID hash 47,821, hired June 15, 2001. Terminated for cause March 22, 2024. Cause?" Daniel asked weakly. "Conspiracy to defraud the company owner," I said simply. "Also, repeated public statements expressing intent to replace current management, which, as it turns out, means replacing me." Raymond Cooper opened his briefcase. "Daniel, these are your final payroll documents. Your last paycheck covers work through yesterday. Your company car keys, credit cards, and building access are hereby revoked." "Dad, you can't be serious." "I'm completely serious. Agent Park, please explain to my former employee what the federal investigation will examine." Agent Park consulted his notes. "We're reviewing bank records, email communications, phone recordings, and witness statements related to the planned defraud. Mrs. Victoria Caldwell's coordination of the competency hearing while actively planning to liquidate assets represents potential federal conspiracy charges." "What about the one-way ticket scheme?" "Interstate transportation fraud, moving someone across state lines under false pretenses with intent to deprive them of property rights. Federal jurisdiction, significant penalties." Daniel was shaking his head. "This is insane. We were trying to help." "Help who?" I asked. "Help you. You seemed confused, struggling with money." "I was never struggling with money. You saw what you wanted to see." Helen pulled out another document. "Daniel, this is a complete accounting of your compensation from Caldwell Industries. 23 years, $4.8 million total. That's $208,000 annually on average. I earned that money." "Did you? Or was it a family subsidy disguised as employment?" Raymond leaned forward. "Daniel, let me ask you something. In 23 years, did you ever wonder why your salary increased so consistently? Why your performance reviews were always positive? Why your promotions came so easily? I worked hard. So do our other 179 employees. None of them received $195,000 salaries for supervisor positions." The math was becoming clear to Daniel. He'd been overpaid for decades. "Your father," Helen continued, "used company resources to support your lifestyle while testing your character. You failed that test." Agent Torres stood up. "Mr. Daniel Caldwell, we'll need you to remain available for questioning. Don't leave the state without notifying our office." "Am I under arrest?" "Not yet, but we recommend you retain legal counsel." Daniel looked at me desperately. "Dad, please, I didn't know. If I'd known you owned the company." "What? You'd have treated me with respect? You'd have been grateful instead of resentful?" "Yes." "Daniel, respect that depends on knowing someone's wealth isn't respect. It's calculation." Helen was gathering documents. "Arthur, there's one more matter. Daniel's company benefits terminated today. Health insurance, life insurance, 401k matching company car insurance, all canceled. What about my 401k balance?" "Your 401k account contains $340,000. That remains yours. However, company matching contributions over 23 years totaled $89,000. We're reviewing whether those payments were legitimate compensation or family gifts disguised as business expenses." The irony was perfect. Daniel's retirement account contained more money than he thought I had in the world. Security guard James Murphy knocked on the conference room door. "Mr. Caldwell, you wanted to see me? James, please escort Mr. Daniel Caldwell to his office to collect personal belongings. Then escort him from the building. His access privileges are permanently revoked." Daniel stood slowly. "Dad, what about our relationship? What about family?" "Family is about respect, loyalty, and love. You chose money over all three. That's not fair." "What's not fair is a son plotting to steal his father's life's work while complaining that his father isn't smart enough to run the business that's been supporting him." As Daniel reached the door, I called out one final time. "Son?" He turned. "The next time you criticize management decisions, remember, you were criticizing me. Every complaint about company policy, every suggestion that leadership needed to change, you were talking about your father. I didn't know. You didn't want to know. You wanted to believe you were smarter than everyone around you." James Murphy led Daniel away.
Through the conference room window, I watched him cross the parking lot toward the bus stop. No more company car, no more reserved parking space, no more $195,000 salary. Agent Park left his business card. "Mr. Caldwell, we'll need your full cooperation with the investigation." "You'll have it. Every document, every recording, every piece of evidence."
After everyone left,
I sat alone in the conference room. 37 years of building, testing, and revealing had led to this moment. The family I'd tried to protect had chosen to destroy itself, but the company I'd built would survive. The story hit the Dayton Daily News 3 days later. "Local factory founder reveals family deception in courthouse drama," read the headline above a photo of me leaving the courthouse. The article detailed everything: the one-way ticket scheme, the competency hearing, the $18 million company revelation. Victoria's attempts at damage control made things worse. She gave an interview claiming I'd hidden assets to avoid helping family members in need. The reporter asked which family members needed help, given Daniel's $195,000 salary and their $4,800 monthly household income. She couldn't answer. Daniel stayed silent, probably on his lawyer's advice. But silence in a town like Dayton creates its own story.
People filled the gaps with assumptions, most of them unflattering. The ripple effects spread quickly. Victoria lost her job at Premier Marketing Solutions within a week. Her boss cited concerns about judgment and character after the newspaper coverage. Clients were asking questions about her family situation. Bad publicity in Dayton's tight business community was career poison. Daniel filed for unemployment benefits. The irony was bitter. A man who'd made $195,000 annually was now seeking $400 weekly state assistance. His unemployment claim listed his reason for separation as terminated for cause. Employers would see that. Their mortgage company called. Without Daniel's income, they couldn't afford the $2,800 monthly payment on their Kettering home. The house they'd bought, assuming his salary was secure, was suddenly unaffordable. Victoria's Mercedes lease was another problem. $689 monthly payments, plus insurance, plus maintenance. All previously manageable with Daniel's generous compensation package. The social consequences were equally harsh. Their country club membership was quietly suspended. Apparently, other members were uncomfortable with the elder abuse implications. Victoria's book club found reasons to exclude her from meetings. Daniel's softball league teammates avoided him. Dayton's manufacturing community is small. Word spread that Daniel Caldwell had plotted against his own father while working for the father's company. Other employers weren't interested in hiring someone with such questionable family loyalty. The FBI investigation moved methodically. Agent Park called weekly with updates. They'd examined 3 years of financial records, email communications, and phone records. The evidence was overwhelming. Victoria's research into Arizona memory care facilities dated back 18 months. She'd been planning this systematically, long before any legitimate concerns about my mental state. They'd found email chains between Victoria and her sister in Phoenix discussing timeline for Dad's relocation and asset liquidation strategies. Federal prosecutors were reviewing charges of conspiracy to commit fraud and interstate transportation with intent to defraud. Daniel's employment records revealed another problem. He'd used his company credit card for personal expenses totaling $32,000 over 5 years. Dinners, clothing, gas for personal trips, all charged to company accounts while he criticized management's financial decisions. The prosecutor offered a plea bargain: full restitution, 5 years probation, and 200 hours of community service in exchange for guilty pleas on reduced charges. Daniel accepted immediately. Victoria was still negotiating. My attorney, Helen Mitchell, had drafted a new will. Daniel's inheritance, $0. Every asset, including the house and all business interests, would transfer to a foundation supporting manufacturing education. The Arthur Caldwell Scholarship Fund would help young people learn trades and start businesses. Victoria wasn't mentioned in the will. Daughter-in-law relationships don't survive conspiracy charges. The business community's reaction surprised me. Chamber of Commerce President Linda Walsh called to request a breakfast meeting. She wanted to nominate me for Entrepreneur of the Year recognition.
Apparently, building an $18 million company while maintaining humility was noteworthy. 3 other business owners approached me about partnerships. Word was spreading that Arthur Caldwell knew how to build value quietly, manage family relationships carefully, and protect assets from manipulation. Raymond Cooper suggested we expand Caldwell Industries. Arthur, you've got credibility now. People know you're the real deal. We could acquire smaller manufacturers, create something bigger. But growth wasn't my priority anymore. The Dayton Business Journal ran a follow-up story 6 weeks later. Caldwell Industries thrives after family drama. Our employee retention was 97%. Production efficiency had increased 12% since the courthouse revelation. Apparently, workers respected leadership more when they understood the owner's genuine commitment to the business. We received resumes from experienced managers wanting to work for a company with authentic leadership. Daniel's replacement as operations supervisor was Janet Rodriguez, 15 years of manufacturing experience, MBA from Wright State, no family complications. The personal cost was significant. I hadn't spoken to Daniel since his termination. He'd called several times, sent letters, even showed up at my house once. I didn't answer the phone, didn't read the letters, didn't open the door. Some relationships, once broken by betrayal, can't be repaired. Victoria had moved to Arizona to live with her sister. The divorce papers arrived 8 weeks after the courthouse hearing. Daniel was losing his wife, his job, his house, and his family simultaneously. I felt sympathy for him, but sympathy didn't excuse conspiracy. The house felt empty without family visits. No more Sunday dinners. No more holiday gatherings. The price of protecting my legacy was loneliness. But the alternative would have been worse. Watching my life's work disappear while pretending to be grateful for assisted living care in Arizona. Dying slowly while Victoria liquidated everything I'd built. Martha would have been proud. She'd warned me about Victoria's true nature years ago. "That woman wants something from us," she'd said during one of Victoria's early visits. I can see it in her eyes. My wife had been right about many things, including the importance of protecting what we'd built together. The Arthur Caldwell who'd emerged from that courthouse was different from the man who'd entered. No more pretending to be less than I was. No more hiding my accomplishments to test other people's character. The tests were over. The results were final, and I was finally free to live openly as exactly who I'd always been. 1 year later, I received an unexpected visitor. Daniel stood on my front porch on a Tuesday evening in March. He looked older, worn down by consequences he'd never anticipated. He'd been working at Reynolds Manufacturing for 6 months, entry-level quality control, $38,000 annually, a significant drop from his previous lifestyle. "Dad, can we talk?" I opened the door wider. "Come in." We sat in the living room where Victoria had once displayed memory care brochures, where Dr. Walsh had questioned my competency, where my family had plotted my disappearance while eating my food in my house. "I've been thinking about what you said, about respect depending on wealth not being real respect. And you were right. I spent 23 years taking everything for granted. The job, the salary, the promotions. I assumed I'd earned it all." Daniel pulled out a folded newspaper clipping, the Dayton Daily News article about my competency hearing. I've read this probably 50 times, trying to understand how I got it so wrong. "What did you learn?" "That I never really knew my father. I knew Arthur the retiree, Arthur the grandfather, Arthur the guy who fixed my car and loaned me money for emergencies, but I never knew Arthur the businessman, Arthur the founder, Arthur the man who built something from nothing." I waited. I also learned that Victoria was using me. She'd been planning this for years, and I was too blind to see it. "She was planning it, but you participated willingly." "I did, because I thought I deserved more than what you were giving me. I thought you were holding me back somehow." Daniel looked around the room. "This house, your truck, your clothes, I thought they were signs of failure. I was embarrassed by your lifestyle." "My lifestyle was a choice. I could have lived differently. I know that now. The question is, can you ever forgive me?" I stood up and walked to the window. My garage, where I'd stored 37 years of business records. The driveway where Daniel had parked his company car for 2 decades. The yard where I'd taught him to throw a baseball when he was 8 years old. "Daniel, forgiveness isn't the issue. Trust is." "I understand. Do you?" Trust isn't about forgiveness or apologies or second chances. Trust is about believing someone will act with integrity when they think no one is watching. I turned back to face him. You spent 23 years thinking I couldn't help you, and you tried to destroy me. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. People can change.
Can they? Or do people just become more careful about hiding who they really are? Daniel stood up. I guess that's what I came to find out. Whether there's any chance for us to rebuild something. What kind of something? A relationship based on honesty. No more pretending, no more assumptions. Just a father and son who know exactly where they stand with each other. I considered this. What would that look like? I don't know. Maybe I could earn your respect the same way I should have earned my job, through actions, not words. And Victoria? Victoria is in Arizona. The divorce was final 6 months ago. She won't be a factor in any future relationship between us. I walked to my filing cabinet, pulled out a folder marked Employment Applications, Current. Inside were resumes from qualified candidates seeking to join Caldwell Industries. Daniel, I'm not offering you your job back. That position is filled permanently. I understand. But respect is something you can earn over time if you're willing to do the work. What kind of work? The kind that proves character. Consistency over years, not months. Actions that align with words when no one is keeping score. Daniel nodded. I'd like to try. Then try. But understand, there's no guarantee of success. Trust, once broken completely, is the hardest thing in the world to rebuild. I know. As he reached the door, I called out, Daniel? Yes, family isn't about blood. It's about respect, loyalty, and love. You chose money over all three once before. I won't make that mistake again. We'll see. After he left, I sat in Martha's chair and thought about second chances, about the difference between forgiveness and trust, about whether people truly change or just become better at hiding their nature. Time would tell, but for the first time in 2 years, I was curious to find out.
If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. And if you've ever had to stand up to family manipulation, share your story in the comments. Sometimes the hardest boundaries to set are the ones that protect us from the people we love most.